Welcome in to another episode of Just Like Us. I'm your host, Justin Bird, and this is my lovely lady and co-host, Lady Zito.
Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome in. Thanks for joining
Thank
us.
you all for joining us. In this episode, we will be discussing healing relationships, mending the bonds that we break. And this is a special episode because I feel like I have come into a new light with myself and with my maker. And I don't think that I've always had the tightest relationship per se. I know God has never left me,
Mm.
but I've gotten distant. And one of the reasons may have been through substance. So I want to say that now is the time for me to be healing this relationship. I don't want to wait any longer. I have so much to gain by having, my relationship with God be mended now. I've had a lot of time to myself to sit and reflect, and I find that, one of the pivotal times where I found myself really believing in the Lord and what his word means to me and how powerful he is when I was by myself sitting in a cell in
Mhm.
prison. And again, I know I've touched this before, but it's important to remember that there are no atheists in a foxhole. When you're sick and in bed, if you're dying, you're definitely going to want a relationship with your maker. And I can only say that from experience because I've been alone, been by myself. And when I thought I had nobody, I really had God. And even after prison, after I got out, I kind of, I I've gotten off the beaten path, so to speak, and got distant from, praying and, having God in my everyday life, but just recently I have found my way back toward, God. And the way I feel is I feel so much better having myself wrapped up with God that, it's just really a no brainer, mending this relationship is a must for me.
Mm.
I've been, in the world of drugs for more than half my life, and I think it's important to have,
Mm.
my father that I can look up to and say, and actually speak with and talk to.
Yeah.
And so for me, this past year was really, really awesome because having the right people around me has really influenced me and driven me to get back with, being in the Word of God.
Mm.
And typically, for the people who know me, I don't, I'm not like big on like talking about God or Jesus or anything like that. But I'm not the old me. I'm a new me,
Mm.
and it's a new year, new me, and it's not something that I shy away from anymore. The Word of God is something that I run toward now. So I'm not afraid of it. I'm not ashamed of saying anything that has to do with God
Mm.
anymore. It's something that again that I find to be a powerful, powerful part of my life, and I'm going to continue growing toward God with
Mm.
God. And again, like being by myself has really showed me that I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Just because I feel like I'm by myself in a room, I'm not alone. I do have God, and his words are powerful, and
Mhm.
so I've had, the I've been reluctant, and this past year has been a blessing because I've found my way back
Mm.
toward what I call my maker, and it's important. Healing this relationship is
Yeah.
extremely important to me, and I just want to mend that bond more and more. Although God's never left me, I feel like I have, again, strayed away from him, and it's time right now. I don't want to waste any opportunity getting closer with him. So now's the time to get closer with him. And broken relationships can leave a permanent scar on us, but healing is possible. So, we're gonna explore
Absolutely.
like the steps to rebuild the trust for our loved ones and to overcome guilt. If we don't feel bad about something, foster healthier connections and
Mm.
moving forward. I think that's important. So,
Yeah.
on that note, I'll hand it over to Letty.
Thanks, Justin. Just watching you over this past year and you building, that relationship with God and yourself. I remember you saying to me, you know, I just want him to reveal himself to me. And then I can remember going into my prayer closet and just saying, God, you heard him, you know, reveal yourself to him. Reveal yourself to him in a way he can understand and knows that it's you, right? Because it's different for all of us. Just like we have, some of us have kids. I, have five of them. None of them are all exactly the same. And my relationship with them isn't exactly the same. They don't understand me in the exact same way, and I don't understand them in the exact same way. So I get to build a relationship, right, with each one of them, um, from birth all the way on up. And just to watch you, do all the things that you've done this year, and reconnect with yourself, reconnect with God, has been such a blessing to see and to watch, because I know your story, you know, I know what you've been through. I know what we've been through, and God is right in the middle of it. I know for me, um, I had a relationship with God as a child. I talked to Him constantly, and then things happen to us, as kids and as adults, and then society's norms and expectations come into play, and things happened, and I you know would pray, and I went to church, and I was very involved in my children's lives, and involved in community, and life fell apart, and I was so worried about life falling apart for me, so worried about it. And it was the best thing that happened to me, because it really allowed me to get broken,
Right.
and surrender,
Right. Yeah.
to God again, but fully surrender,
Right.
in a very, meaningful way. I was desperate. I had tried everything I could try to maintain appearances, um, to make it look good on the outside, while inside I was in pieces. And the relationship that needed mending was the one with God. And I've talked about this before in the previous podcast. Being on the floor, literally in the fetal position, in the shower, on my knees, sobbing, not even crying, sobbing and calling out to God and saying, I need you. I need you to heal me. I want to heal this relationship with you. I don't want to keep, hurting myself and hurting others. How do we do this, God? How do I do this? I mean, those were what my prayers were like, and He answered me. I sought Him and He answered me. I kept seeking, asking, and knocking, and He answered me. He met me right where I was at. He didn't say, you need to get your life together, you need to stop doing that, and then I'll come.
Right.
He met me right in my mud. He sat with me in that mud. And we began to build this relationship, build back up this connection. I was like, are you sure, God, can I trust you? Because a lot of people have hurt me. I've hurt myself, God, and I was angry at you, and I began a relationship, a talking relationship, just like that with Him, out loud. Right. And then He started I could feel His presence. I could feel His love. I could feel it wash over me like, a warm blanket. And it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever experienced in my life. It was it was like I was having this awakening, um, this tugging on my heart for something more, for something better. It was like a coming home. It was a remembering that love that I had experienced with God before, but
Right.
on a much deeper level, because I was ready.
Right.
I was ready to release all the negative, all the hurt, all the pain, the grief, the loneliness, the anger, the rage that I had pent up inside for so many years of just masking um, what was going on the inside of me. And so I, like I said, just begin that relationship with God, and I allowed Him to just pour into me. I would sit in there sometimes in complete darkness, the complete darkness.
For hours.
For hours, yes, for hours. I mean, you would bring me food to make sure that, I was okay.
Yeah.
Do you need anything to drink? And I would just sometimes just lay there in silence, and just let all the thoughts that were coming up for me come up and not avoid them anymore,
Right. Yeah.
but actually name them and see where they were coming from and asking God, well, what do I do with them now?
Right. Yeah.
And we began to, he just began to give me like breadcrumbs to follow,
Right. Yeah.
and some of the things sounded really strange, like, going back to my childhood and coloring. I went and got a bunch of, adult coloring books, they're called, that had just really amazing positive sayings. He bought me some. I mean, I went all in. I bought the whole, the markers and everything.
Yeah.
And I would sit night after night because it gave me just enough time, right, to gain some clarity and not be using or be stuck in those emotions. But it gave me an outlet to create.
Right.
And I would bring it out and show Justin, oh, look at this, look what I colored or what I created,
Right.
and it just started, it started from there. And the relationship, I started to trust God again. And when you start to trust something greater than yourself, right, you can then start trusting yourself again. Because
Right.
I was in a place where I not that I didn't just not trust anybody, I didn't even trust myself.
Right. Yeah.
And I started trusting myself. I started taking myself out on dates. I started going to the movies by myself, to, parks by myself, to eat by myself, and just really learn who I was.
Right.
Remember who I was, because
Yeah.
I got off track as well, and
Right.
just completely lost my whole identity and had to, you know, unlearn to relearn how to be Letty again.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we know that substance takes those things away from
Yes,
us.
absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
And get underneath all the behaviors and why I did what I did and why I would say what I would say. And God was so faithful to me. He was so forgiving. He showed me so much grace, so much grace. And I think it's important to show that same grace to others as they're going through their journey, right? Sometimes, and I'm guilty of it myself, right, we forget where we came from, and how God can meet us in every place that we're at, how God can do the impossible, because we're sitting here living proof, like all of you watching us are living proof that we have a God that is in the business of doing the impossible, right? And for me, I am just I'm grateful every day, getting up and seeing what the day holds, and knowing that even if I have a negative moment or negative few moments, or even a negative day, that I can always reset, recharge, and realign. I don't have to stay there unless I
Right.
choose to. And
Yes.
sometimes I choose to
Right.
stay there. And then God is faithful to say, is that really where you want to stay?
Right.
And it's always a resounding no. I don't want to stay here, God. What can we do together to help me, move forward? What is it, it's going back. What is it that is bothering me? Where am I feeling it in my body? Where did this thought process come from? And then moving forward and being able to bounce things off you.
Yeah.
When I'm, hey, Justin, this or that bothered me, and this is where I think it's coming from. What do you think about that? And having that support system, but also learning that, trusting yourself is okay too. Trusting God is okay too. Because like I said in the previous podcast, there's not always going to be people around you. And even when there is, ultimately, it's your life and it's your decision.
Right. Yes. And
so
yeah,
with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
No, that was awesome. And another relationship that I have been able to build on is myself. I've been able to heal my own relationship with myself. And I think this is super important because there have been gaps in my life where, I've struggled with substance or drugs of one or the other. And
Mm,
it's hard when, when you have something to run to, when you're feeling down, or when you're feeling sad, or when you're
yeah.
feeling anything that's not what I would consider to be happy. You
Mm,
run to substance, you run to alcohol, you run to
absolutely.
any little crutch that we may have. Nicotine, caffeine,
Shopping.
even caffeine, like coffee, like I have been a couple weeks off coffee, and I still have the little bit of urge from the smell, and I know that it gives you that kick, you know but these things that I'm healing from for myself are important, because I'm speaking with myself so that I can
Mm,
heal myself. And thanks to God, I have this free will that's super strong. Like, I'm a very strong-willed person, and by healing myself, I'm able to be more in touch with other people as well. So,
yes.
and I know I'm a powerful person. I know I'm very strong, and I'm really starting to reconnect with myself, because
Mm,
it's important to be able to mend the relationship with myself. Because I mean, I look in the mirror and I'm like, "You're dope, dude. You're amazing. You're like I can say,
yeah.
I love you. I love you
Yeah.
so much, and I could mean it because I do."
Mm,
And I
so
think that's super
important.
important. And for me to be able to say that and honestly know it and mean it, I think it feels really good, and not to like fake the funk,
Does.
so to speak.
It
You know what I mean?
does.
Talking to myself, saying, "Man, you're dope, dude. You don't need no dope to be dope, bro. You're
That's
already
right.
amazing. You got all this energy, this drive, this willpower to lead people in
Love
the most
that.
positive way." And I enjoy being who I am. And I think this relationship
Mm,
of myself, healing myself, is super powerful, because I get to see firsthand what I'm capable of doing. I already
mm,
know, but you don't really know until you're like really, like you feel like you're really coming out of something. You're like,
mm.
okay, I see you. I see
Oh,
you, and I love.
yes.
Uh, so there's the four things that I had stopped doing this year, and I think it was really cool to see, because the first one was substance, and I think that was probably one of the more difficult ones, because
Mm,
it kind of grabs you. You know what I mean? And it tried to pull you back, but I didn't allow it. I had my,
yeah.
I set my, where I was gonna. I didn't want to go back to it, and so I made sure that I stuck to it. And then there was, vaping. I left my vape
Mm.
in the
Punta
van,
Cana.
and I haven't gone back since. I said, if this isn't a sign, I'll make it a sign. So these things, are these steps I've taken, they're solidifying more and more how powerful I am to myself, and with the
Mm,
Almighty, I've been able to push through these things and make it happen. And I feel extremely great, because I'm also setting the tone for my son. Healing myself is, like, I
mm.
think, one of the best and most key factors to be able to
Yes.
to move forward in my life. There's so much stuff that
Absolutely.
I'm gonna be exploring here in the near future, and it's just important to be good with myself.
Mm,
Because I really thought I was really good with myself, but
mm.
I see how far away I was from me being the best me who I could
Yeah.
be from just last year
Yeah.
until right now. You know what I mean? And it feels really good to have made amends with myself.
Mm,
And I think that's important, because I want to just reiterate how amazing you guys are, how amazing as people we are. And if we don't really know that, and if we're not able to see that in ourselves, then how is anybody else? I know it's kind of cliche, but that's just
it's
really, in
true.
my opinion, how raw and real
Or
that
how are we
is.
going to see it in other people if we don't see it in
Yes,
ourselves?
right, exactly. So, and I think that, having this relationship with myself, it empowers me to have even
Mm,
better relationships with other people. And I'm just gonna say this, that I feel
yeah.
like I have some phenomenal relationships, just
Yes.
on the strength of what people say to me, how
Mm,
people respond to me, myself. And they say, just in the past 4 or 5 months, I've had so many people say,
mm,
"You have empowered me to be so much better," or you're a light, or like, and like, literally, like, there's so many people have told me, like, "Man, you got it going on,"
mm.
and I feel like that's necessary for me to keep on
Yeah.
striving to do better for myself
Yeah.
and others.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because I can say that you were, even though we were both in what people would call darkness, right? Using substance, you were you were still a light. I was still a light.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
we would, when one was down, the other one would be up. When I was down, you'd be up,
right.
and by you not always giving into me, or, giving me what I thought I wanted or needed from you, it allowed me to go to God, you know, rebuild that relationship there, and then rebuild the one with me. And I just want to thank you for that. I truly, truly want to thank you for that, because you helped give me my life back.
Oh man,
You really did.
Wow.
You know, you helped
Thank
me
you.
reconnect with myself. And you know, there's still relationships that are mending and repairing, but I think the most important one, you know, and we can't say it enough, is with yourself. Not everybody's going to be happy that you're healing, because they're still kind of left, right, with some of the mess that was created. And when they're ready, you know, hopefully we get that opportunity,
Right.
you know, and we can do what we can do to the best of our ability
Yeah.
at making right, you know, what we can. And it starts by making it right with us first, and forgiving
Right. Yes.
yourself, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
Forgiving yourself.
Yeah. And if I could add something to that.
Go ahead.
So there was a
Yeah.
couple months ago where I was going through, you know, what I would call depression. It's something that I had never really felt before, or at least never gave myself the opportunity to feel, so to
Right.
speak. And this is very powerful, I think, because there was about, I don't know, I would say it was at least a full month and a half, just recently, probably like a month and a half, 2 months ago,
Yeah.
where I think I was detoxing from, you know, just like, it's been a year so since I've quit in 4 of these major things that were in my life, and I just feel like it was a point where this stuff was calling me back. And again, this was just recently, and it was like I just wanted to be in a dark area, and I wanted to just go to sleep. I was tired all the time. And what was so powerful was like I was actually finally able to go and sit with this uncomfortableness of being uncomfortable, and like the typical old ways of I was doing things would go find a substance, or find alcohol, or find nicotine, or go just take that at one, you know, whatever it took to get the edge off, so I didn't have to sit in that uncomfortable feeling that I had. But
Yeah.
I as I sat feeling what I would think would be somewhat depressed, I embraced it. You know, there's times where was really fighting showing it, but it's just like I was just sad. And so I had the first understanding in my life of people who may have depression, and how potent it is and how strong it can be, but also how much power I have in my mind. I feel like crying right now. You know why?
So
Because
powerful.
I was able to get out of this funk, no matter what chemicals I felt were mixing, or whatever was going on. And by no means am I ever saying, I'm not saying that, you know, people that have depression or things
We're
like that.
just telling our story.
I'm saying, like, for me,
Right.
how it worked was I was able to sit with my thoughts and feelings without having anything to go use as a crutch. And I think it was so important for me to feel that, so I knew what I didn't want. The mind is powerful, and I was able to sit through this and think, okay, I can go use. Did I have a quick second? I'm using not substance. I didn't, because that's something that I've already, and I'm not above anything, you know, I'm not, but I know myself. And but I wanted to drink a beer. I did. I wanted to go drink it, and that was kind of like my first thought was like, you know, and I told Letty, I said, I want to go have a beer. But you know what I did is I sat through it, sat as through that uncomfortable feeling, and I dealt with what it was like in real life, instead of going and using something as a crutch. I think that was super important, and it helped me come out, because I kept reminding myself how important it is that I get up and make things happen. And I wasn't forcing myself up. I sat in there until it was time. I wasn't like, get up, fight it. I wasn't doing that. I was sitting with it until it was time. And I knew it was time, because I started feeling like, okay, I'm not going to let whatever this feeling is overcome me, because it seemed like it was really easy to get wrapped up in it. I just wanted to go lay down, turn the lights off. I don't put earplugs in, a mask over my face, and just go to sleep. And I'm not used to that. But guess what? I was okay with it, because I've never really had that roller coaster of I wouldn't say emotions, but it was emotional. It was like dark. It was like a really dark place. Things looked different. I wonder if any of you, just imagine, I'm sure some of you can you know, can relate to this, when you're in a place that you know is home, but it physically looks different. You know, how many of you have had that feeling that you're in your home, and you just like when you got the flu, kind of, when you kind of have the flu and like things just like look, feel different. You know what I mean? I'm sure some of you can relate to this, where you're at a place that you've been several times, but it's just uncomfortable. You don't feel like it. That's how I felt. And then I wanted to figure out mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because again, I'm coming in to a new me. I'm coming into a whole new me that I'm not typically used to. And I wanted to experience it. And I did. As I'm going through this, I'm thinking, I want to experience this. And I don't know why I feel like crying right now, because I know the power of my mind and my heart. And I know that if I can do it, you can do it. There's so much that we're capable of doing that we don't give enough credit for, and we're powerful people. But again, I was so quick to run to substance and things in the past. I said, you know what, this is a whole different me, a whole new me. That is not going to be the way of doing things. And so I sat with it and sat with it and sat with it. It was for probably like a month and a half, and it trickled into going on close to 2 months. And I was okay with it, because I knew that there was light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, there's a chance that maybe for whatever chemistry's in my body, I'm going to sit and this will be it, and I'll be like this forever, but not in my eyes, because I know that when I talk to myself, I pray to God, I want to get out of this. I want to make sure that I'm not stuck in this place. And it started getting better. The days started getting lighter, and I started feeling better. And then boom, it was just something that I was able to, okay, I finally figured. It was sitting with the pain, is sitting with the uncomfortableness. Exactly. That was so powerful, because again, typically I would run to something and cover it up and use it as like a crutch. And I didn't have these things. I could have, but I chose not to. And my choice, my free will said, you're so much more powerful with even like the food that I'm eating. Like I'm right now, I am in process of eating things that do not have ingredients. And that's going to be, somewhat. But I mean, hey, if we're paying rent, why not pay rent to our body? Why not start making it count for our body and start healing my relationship with me? And I'm saying, like, this is something that I find to be so important, because it's just so, like, everywhere you look, there's unhealthy foods. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but I do want to say that I think healing myself, my relationship with myself, it's going to start with this. It's going to start with what I'm putting in my body before I put it out. Because it was something that I would say when I was using substance was, don't judge me for what I put in my body. You should be judging me for what I put out of my body. I wasn't ashamed. I wasn't. When I used substance, I was not ashamed, which I'm not making, I don't want to glorify anything. I'm just saying I wasn't ashamed of it. I wasn't like trying to hide it. I wasn't over here, what I mean? Like, I was using. And I wasn't like your typical user that was doing typical things. But I do want to say, healing myself has been the most profound thing I could have ever done. Thanks to God, give me the free will to love myself, to love him, to love my family. I'm going to be here as long as possible. I tell Justin Jr., I'll be 103. I'm going to get shot to space butt naked. Well, now I'm going to get married. When I die, I want to get shot to space butt naked. But he said, Dad, can we get buried in the same grave? And so now I'm going to get buried. But I think it's important that my son sees how happy I am with myself, how happy I am with Lady, how happy we are together. So on that note, I just wanted to say, like, it is important to, to heal our relationships, sooner than later. I mean, some of these relationships may not be able to be healed sooner than later, but, taking steps toward it now.
Yeah, it's important to, again, like I said, make sure you're healing that one with you first, so that if things don't go your way, you're okay with you at the end of the day. You're able to still look yourself in the mirror and be, the you were always created to be. And I think when we start to heal ourselves, right, we start to heal our family, that they see us doing new things and stepping out and really living an authentic and genuine life, right, for ourselves. And they start to, you'll see it just starts to happen, even with strangers, with, all around, people want to know what you're doing. That gives you so much joy and peace.
Yes, absolutely.
And happiness. I agree. Right? Because it's truly from within. Right?
Yes.
Do the work.
Do the work. Sit with it.
Invest in yourself. Yeah. And do the work.
Be uncomfortable.
Right.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's key. That's what I would say to take it. If anything, if I was to teach something from this, it would be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Sit in that funk until you're ready to come out, until it's time. You know what I mean? Don't go wash it away with stuff that's not gonna that benefit us. Like just sit through it. I think it's important to understand yourself. So.
Yeah, feelings just want to be felt, right? They want to be loved and acknowledged.
Yes.
And so, we just want to thank you
Thank you,
again for
guys.
joining
Thanks
us
for
on our
joining us.
podcast, Just Like Us.
Let's go.
You can also catch our episodes on Spotify under Just Like Us. So we appreciate all of your support. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And make sure you hit the like button.
Yes, that helps.
And
it helps.
let us know what
saying that, but it helps. It does.
And let us know what your
all them good things.
Yeah, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, and any feedback is good because again, this is new for us. So interaction is great because we're gonna respond to every single message. I am for sure.
Yes.
We're just because again, it's exciting to have you guys here with us because this is a journey that we're taking and we're learning as we're going as well. So and this episode was about healing relationships. And for me, I'm so glad I was able to heal a relationship starting with myself. Thank you.
We've learned so much, and we're just here to help you help you.
Boom.
And
thank
with that
you guys.
Said, thank you again.
We love you.
Love you.
Until the next episode.
Peace.
Peace.